All right, I want to get straight into it this week. New week, new mercies. What's going on, everybody? My name is Armond. Wake up. There are two things that I want to address, and I just want to get right into it. The first thing I want to do is I want to recap my live stream from a couple weeks ago, where I shared about my experience of 10 years building a church and everything that came with that. Really consistent feedback that I got was that people felt like I was putting words to things that they maybe didn't have language for. So that's great. That's super dope. I'm grateful for that. There are lots of people who are in that environment, and there are lots of people who watched who have gone through that process and they're on the other side of it, and they are reconnected to a new church home, be it an actual building or a group, home church, however that is wonderful, great. Some people are still in the wilderness I shouldn't call it the wilderness though. Some people have not joined with the church since then. They're still processing their experience. And I think that's something to note too. I think we always want to put a time on things. And as long as you're moving forward, as long as there is progressive movement, like who's to say when something starts and when something stops? You know what I'm saying? I wanted to address some I don't want to call it like criticism, because I haven't really gotten criticism. But I think there's an overarching pushback that I've gotten. So I had someone tell me to be mindful of my reconstruction in the midst of my deconstruction. I've noticed that there are certain people who have not engaged the content who normally engage. And I think a consistent characteristic of these people is that they are very pro-church. I've noticed it because another piece of feedback that I've gotten was I was commended on how gracious I was. I didn't throw anybody under the bus. I didn't name names. I didn't just throw the church out altogether. I realize when it comes to public critique of the church, and I don't even think I did that. I think I just shared my experience, but it's kind of bled into just overall critique of the church. I think what happens is we get that from two spaces. The first space we get it from is leadership, pastors, apostles. These are people that are trusted as visionaries. So when they have a critique of the church, it's because they're trying to get them to another place. So that critique is often accepted. The other group of people that you see that critique the church are people who have left and who are angry and bitter at their experience. A consistent theme of those group of people is that they will not miss an opportunity to tell you that they used to go to church and, they saw a lot of things that were contradictory. They're just very vocal with their critique and their pushback. But not as often do you hear from someone who had a bad experience without malicious intent. And I worked really, really, really hard to make sure that I didn't do that. I remember when I got divorced, my first marriage, and I remember sitting in a grocery store parking lot after work. And I remember I saw this girl walk by. She was very attractive, right? In that moment, I said, God, I don't want to be bitter my whole life because my first marriage was so tumultuous. I didn't know if I was ever going to get married again. And I asked God to help, to preserve my heart, preserve my perspective, so that if the opportunity came up to get married again, that I would be open to it. And I think that was a very important prayer to pray. And that is a similar prayer that I've prayed through this process. Because let me tell you, I've told people have tried to recruit me to their churches, and, some people have wanted to disciple me through my experience, but in many cases, their goal was just to get me to go back to church rather than to process my experience. The outcome was kind of already predetermined in their head. You know what I'm saying? And so I think when we hear unfavorable experiences, but there's a nuance of someone who doesn't wish foul on the church, someone who is still hopeful of the church, that I think people who still preserve and hold the church as it is very valuable. I think those people are ready to defend the faith in that way. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just here to tell y'all don't have to do that. It's not necessary. In anything, man, you can critique something and still love it. And if I'm more honest, I don't love the church, but I love God. And my prayer is that he would restore or even develop my love, a real love for the church. However it ends up, if it doesn't end up in my desired way, you know what I'm saying? What I would think is healthy. I think that is the mature prayer in response to that. So some people who have felt the need to put their dukes up, it's really not that serious. But I hear you and I understand. Which leads me to my second point and something else that I want to talk about. Last week, I think, Maverick City Music, they posted, I'm laughing for reasons that I'll share shortly, but they posted a statement where basically they severed ties with, I believe, Dante Bowe, who was one of the main singers of the group. Let me just get this out the way. I'm going to just say this. I feel like the Maverick City aesthetic is Kanye West, Jesus is King, without the controversy, without the shenanigans that Kanye brings into a space. You know, mainly it's a visual aesthetic. It's the oversized, the fear of God. It's look at me, right? It's the oversized clothes, and there's a hip hop appeal, but it's still very clean cut. And hip hop has always been rebellious. You can't have the aesthetic without the heart. And the heart of hip hop, because one of its traits is rebellious, when rebellion isn't there, it just comes off as really phony to me. There's a better word for that, but I'm gonna just go with phony for right now. I'm not a fan. They do great music. People, have encounters with God to their music, and that's great. And that's another thing that I want to say about the church is my experience is my experience. And I've lived long enough to know that I'm wrong if I try to ascribe my experience to everybody else. So if I feel a way about music or a situation or circumstance, whatever, if we are all fearfully and wonderfully made, that means that we all see the same thing from a million different perspectives. And it is not my job to determine who's right and who's wrong in many cases. Some, yes. A lot of them, no. And this goes into my point about Maverick City, my ultimate point. My point was not to say, I don't like Maverick City. That's not my point. My point is, with this situation, I haven't really tapped in super duper crazy, but the things that have come across my desk and my screen, they pose questions that I haven't seen anybody ask. And so I'm going to ask the questions. The first question that I have, and this is not only for Maverick City and Dante Bowe, this is for celebrity culture. And not just the celebrity culture that's in the church. This is celebrity culture at large. Why do we feel entitled to access of people's lives simply because they do something that we are connected to? What business is it of mine what's going on between Maverick City and Dante Bowe? Why do I need to know details? Who does that benefit? And I'm not saying that the statement was wrong. What I'm saying is our response to the situation is pretty messy, in my opinion. So this is what we do. People will share bite-sized, tiny morsels of their life. And much like a prophetic word we'll fill in the blanks and insert something that may or may not be there. What makes sense to us? For example, I could take a picture with my kids and the automatic assumption is he's a great father. No other evidence other than a picture. No other evidence than a couple of pictures. An Instagram account, a TikTok that blows up and goes viral, and all of this carefully curated content that I talked about a long time ago, that in our mind, in our heart, we think it disciples us. And it's like, it can't. A meme can't disciple you. A carefully edited video cannot disciple you. A scripted whatever cannot disciple you. A sermon cannot disciple you. It can be used as a tool, but it can't walk with you. It can't walk with you. So I could take a picture of my kids and I could be a terrible dad. You know what I'm saying? I could be a horrible father. You wouldn't know that unless I told you. We just based it off the picture. So when we ascribe an outcome to that morsel of soundbite, visual representation, whatever, of somebody's life, another thing that clicks in our brain is that now we are entitled to this person's entire life and everything we share. We're connected. So that looks like relationship goals with couples. That looks like in the fashion world, especially on social media, folks buying sneakers every week and you feel like you got to keep up with them. Women who want to be married, they are either, oh my God, a whole bunch of things. The couple that you want your marriage to look like. It could be the influencer who is, preaching singleness and contentment in singleness. And because her contentment looks different from your process of contentment, then now you are discontent with your contentment. You know what I'm saying? We do that all the time. And I think we have to check ourselves and say, yo, why do we feel like we have to have access to people's lives? What business is it? And what do we benefit as believers if we know what went on behind closed doors between Maverick City and Dante? Like, here's the problem with modern day Christianity. And there is a change coming. I do believe that we're in the early stages of a change coming, but like we're working out of some things where like humanity is only defined as sinful and nothing else. And we're really seeing like how layered our humanity goes, how deep it runs. And it doesn't necessarily mean this finality of sin because we don't make the right decision or because we exist in our humanity, period. And that really bothers me so much, man. Like, we have to let God be God, and our job is to be people. And the places where we need God to develop our person or to make the difference in our person, that's where he steps up and he's able to do so. We got to open that door, because what if you don't do something well and it never changes? Does that mean that God exists to be God in your life? You know what I'm saying? Does that mean that you're not going to get a certain blessing or something like that, or a door you want open? All this like Christian vernacular that we use that, describes how God will move for us on our behalf. I don't necessarily believe that's true. The second thing I'm gonna say, because I've been talking way too long, I want to wrap this up, is that the way we talk about these things, when I see them led by algorithms, trending topics, what will get the most clicks, what will get the most engagement. Let me say this, that has its place. That has its place, especially if you are a full-time, social media. If you're really trying to grow your platform and you're utilizing social media, those analytics matter. They do. They do. But when you are led by that more than led by the Spirit, led by common sense and decency, respect for other people and spaces, and you just trying to get these clicks, my G, something's wrong. It's really easy to just be messy, just because you're curious about something. Don't let your curiosity put you in a place where you end up being messy in order to like scratch that itch. You know what I'm saying? That's all I wanted to share because I could really go off a lot further than that. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you go to ArmondWakeUp.com, sign up for the mailing list if you haven't. No question of the week, none of that. I've talked way too long. I'll just see you guys in the next video, and y'all take care.